Commander Jack Miller stood at the bridge of the UES Defender, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. The massive warship hung in orbit around Horizon Colony, Earth's furthest human settlement. Miller watched the long-range scanners with growing concern. 3 unidentified vessels had appeared at the edge of the system 2 hours ago, moving with purpose toward the colony. "Contact in 5 minutes, sir," reported Officer Mark Thomas, his fingers moving rapidly across the control panel. Still no response to communications. Miller nodded grimly. "Sound general quarters. I don't like this silence." The alarm echoed through the ship as crew members rushed to battle stations. The Defender was the colony's only protection until reinforcements could arrive, at least 15 hours away. "Unknown vessels accelerating," Thomas called out, energy signatures spiking. Before Miller could respond, brilliant beams of blue-white energy lanced from the alien ships toward the colony below. The bridge crew watched in horror as the settlement's defensive shields collapsed under the assault. Within minutes, Horizon Colony, home to 12,000 civilians, was reduced to smoldering ruins. "Those monsters," whispered Miller. "They didn't even try to talk." The alien vessels turned toward the Defender. Miller steeled himself. "Tactical, target the lid ship. All weapons, fire when ready." The Defender shuddered as its railguns and missile systems unleashed their fury. The aliens responded with the same devastating energy weapons that had destroyed the colony. Miller braced for impact. The blue-white beams struck the Defender's hull. The ship trembled violently, but to everyone's surprise, remained intact. "Damage report," Miller demanded. "Hull integrity at 78%, Thomas replied, sounding shocked. "Shields failing, but the hull is holding against their weapons." The aliens fired again and again. Each hit weakened the Defender, but the ship continued to fight back, landing solid blows on the lead alien vessel. "Sir," Thomas said, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. 3 more of our ships are inbound. ETA 12 hours. Miller nodded. "We just need to hold until then." The battle continued for 6 grueling hours. The Defender suffered heavy damage but remained operational, while one alien ship had been crippled and another showed signs of damage. Finally, the alien vessels retreated, jumping to faster-than-light speed and vanishing from the system. 2 days later, Miller sat in a conference room at Earth Defense Headquarters. Fleet Admiral Grant paced at the front of the room, surrounded by military leaders and scientists. "The aliens call themselves the Vorn," Admiral Grant explained. "They've attacked 3 more outlying colonies since Horizon. But something strange is happening. Our ships are surviving encounters that, by all rights, should destroy them." "I can confirm," Miller added. "Their weapons are far beyond ours, yet the Defender withstood hours of direct hits." The room buzzed with theories until a nervous young man stood up from the back row. "Sir, I might know why," he said. Admiral Grant raised an eyebrow. "And you are?" "Tom Reed, sir, junior engineer from Fleet Research." "Speak freely." "Reed." Tom stepped forward, clutching a data tablet. "I've analyzed the battle data. The Vorn weapons are based on crystalline energy matrices that should cut through our hulls like butter. But they don't." He paused, looking uncertain. "I believe it's because of the hull composition we've been using for the past 10 years. "Our standard titanium-carbon mix?" asked a senior officer skeptically. "Not exactly," Tom replied. "It's what we added to it." He tapped his tablet, projecting specifications onto the main screen. "This binding agent, it's something we started using about a decade ago. It wasn't for strength or protection. It was just cheaper." Admiral Grant leaned forward, suddenly intrigued. "Are you saying our ships are surviving because we cut costs on hull materials?" Tom nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. And the Vorn have no idea why their weapons aren't working as expected. We may have accidentally discovered their greatest weakness." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. Earth had stumbled upon an unexpected advantage in a war they never wanted. The memory played vividly in Tom Reed's mind as he stood before Earth's military leadership. 10 years earlier, he had been nothing more than a junior maintenance technician at the Oakland shipyards, tasked with routine hull inspections on the newly commissioned defense vessels. "Reed, we've got a problem," his supervisor had told him that fateful day. "The binding compound for the new fleet's hull plating is 3 times over budget. The brass wants alternatives yesterday." Tom had spent weeks testing different compounds, searching for something that would meet specifications without breaking the bank. Most candidates failed spectacularly, too brittle, too reactive, or simply ineffective at the molecular bonding level. On the final day before the deadline, desperate and exhausted, Tom had tried something unconventional, a peculiar alloy of common earth metals that metallurgists typically overlooked because of its unremarkable properties. It wasn't particularly strong or heat-resistant, but it bonded well with the titanium-carbon matrix of ship hulls and cost a fraction of the military-grade alternative. This wasn't designed as a defensive measure, Tom explained to the admirals now gathered around him. It was literally a cost-cutting measure that got approved because it passed the minimum structural requirements. Admiral Grant studied the molecular diagram on the display. "And you believe this cost-cutting measure is why our ships aren't being sliced apart by foreign weapons?" "The evidence suggests it," Tom replied, pulling up battle footage. "Their energy weapons operate on a crystalline resonance frequency. This particular alloy's atomic structure creates a dampening effect that dissipates their weapon energy across the hull instead of allowing it to penetrate." In the footage, a Vorn energy beam struck a human destroyer. The beam spread across the hull like water on a hot skillet, rather than cutting through as designed. An older scientist with thick glasses stood up. "Dr. Morgan, weapons research," he introduced himself. "Reed's theory is sound. We've analyzed debris from the Vorn ship Commander Miller's team disabled. Their technology is crystalline-based, both in weapons and computing. This alloy creates harmonic interference patterns at the exact frequencies their weapons operate on." "A lucky accident," someone muttered. "Lucky indeed," Admiral Grant said. "The question now is, do we tell the public about this advantage or keep it classified?" General Williams, a stern-faced man with close-cropped gray hair, leaned forward. "If we reveal this information, the Vorn might intercept our communications and develop countermeasures. We should classify this at the highest level." "I disagree," said Captain Lewis from Intelligence. "If we tell our civilian shipbuilders to incorporate this alloy in all vessels, we need a reasonable explanation. We can't suddenly demand all ships use this specific compound without raising questions." Admiral Grant considered both arguments. What about the Vorn? What would they make of this if they capture one of our ships and analyze the hull composition? Tom glanced at the technical readouts again. "The beauty of this alloy is its simplicity, sir. It's made from elements common throughout the galaxy. The Vorn might identify it, but they'd likely dismiss it as inconsequential because it has no remarkable properties by itself. It's only in combination with our hull design that it creates the defensive effect. Like hiding in plain sight," Dr. Morgan added. The debate continued for hours. Eventually, Admiral Grant made his decision. "We classify the specific defensive properties, but authorize expanded production of the alloy under the guise of standardizing our fleet. We'll call it Project Shield." As the meeting adjourned, Tom found himself walking alongside Commander Miller. "You realize what this means, Reed?" Miller asked quietly. "Your cost-cutting trick might have just saved humanity." Tom nodded slowly, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "The irony isn't lost on me, sir. I was just trying to save some money." Miller placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. "Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen by accident. Report to my ship tomorrow at 800. The Defender needs its hull reinforced with more of your special alloy, and I want you supervising the work." Tom saluted, realizing his life had just changed forever. Humanity's accidental advantage needed to be developed further and quickly. The Vorn would be back, and next time, they might not retreat so easily. Admiral Wilson surveyed the assembled fleet from the bridge of the UES Intrepid. 12 warships hung in formation beyond Jupiter's orbit, each vessel freshly outfitted with Tom Reed's enhanced hull composition. The modified alloy now covered 30% more surface area and had been integrated into the ship's shield generators as well. "Status report," Wilson demanded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the mission ahead. "All ships report ready, Admiral," replied his communications officer. "Captain West and the Valiant have taken point position as ordered." Wilson nodded, studying the tactical display. The Vorn had established a forward base in the Kuiper Belt. Intelligence suggested they were using it to stage larger attacks on human colonies. This would be humanity's first deliberate offensive against the alien invaders. Aboard the Valiant, Captain Lisa West reviewed the battle plan with her officers. As the fleet's most decorated tactician, she had been chosen to lead the vanguard. "Remember," she told her bridge crew, "our advantage is defensive. We can withstand their energy weapons better than expected, but we're not invincible. Hit hard, hit fast, and maintain formation." Tom Reed stood awkwardly at the back of the bridge. This was his first combat mission, and despite his civilian status, Admiral Wilson had insisted he join the operation to monitor the performance of his modified hulls in real combat. "Engineer Reed," Captain West called out. "Any last-minute advice before we engage the enemy?" Tom stepped forward, feeling out of place among the uniformed officers. "The alloy should hold against their primary weapons, but we've never tested it against sustained fire. If you start seeing localized hull temperature spikes, it means the dissipation effect is failing. Rotate the ship to present a different face to their weapons." West nodded. "Noted. Take position at the engineering station and keep an eye on those readings." The human fleet accelerated toward the Vorn base, weapons charged and shields at maximum. Long-range scanners showed 5 Vorn vessels moving to intercept. "They're taking the bait," West said with grim satisfaction. "All ships, prepare to engage." The space between the fleets lit up as the Vorn opened fire first, their distinctive blue-white energy beams lancing toward the human ships. The Valiant shuddered as it took 3 direct hits. "Hull integrity," West demanded. "Holding at 92%, reported her tactical officer with surprise. "The modified sections are performing even better than simulations predicted." Tom watched the readings carefully. "The alloy is dissipating their energy attacks across a wider area than before. It's working." West didn't waste the advantage. "All ships, return fire. Target their propulsion systems." The human fleet unleashed a barrage of railgun slugs and missiles. Without effective energy weapons, the humans had focused on kinetic weapons technology, and now those simpler weapons were finding their marks. 2 Vorn ships suffered immediate damage, their crystalline hulls cracking under the impact of high-velocity projectiles. The battle raged for 40 minutes. The human ships took significant hits but remained operational, while the Vorn vessels struggled with mounting damage from the relentless kinetic assault. "They're breaking formation," West announced as the Vorn ships began maneuvering erratically. "They seem confused by our resilience." Tom monitored his station intently. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from the Vorn flagship. They're scanning us with some kind of deep penetrating beam." "They're trying to figure out our secret," West realized. "Admiral Wilson, the Vorn are analyzing our hull composition. They're learning about our advantage." Wilson's voice came through the comm. "Understood. Press the attack. We need to drive them back before they can transmit their findings." The human fleet surged forward, concentrating fire on the Vorn flagship. Under the combined assault, the alien vessel's crystalline structure began to fracture. Moments later, it erupted in a brilliant explosion of light and crystal fragments. The remaining Vorn ships retreated, jumping to faster-than-light speed. As the human fleet regrouped, Tom approached Captain West. "They know now," he said quietly. "They'll adapt their weapons." West nodded grimly. "Then we'll need to adapt faster." This was just the beginning. Admiral Wilson's voice addressed the fleet. "Well done, everyone. We've won the first round. But the real war has just begun. Return to Earth for debriefing and refit." The Vorn research vessel Crystalline Seeker drifted at the edge of their territory, its laboratories buzzing with activity. Chief Scientist Ix examined the fragments collected from the recent battle. The sample, barely the size of a human fingernail, contained traces of the mysterious human hull material that had so effectively neutralized their weapons. "Most puzzling," Ix muttered, adjusting the molecular scanner. "Such a simple alloy causing such significant disruption." The Vorn had never encountered this problem before. Their crystalline energy weapons had cut through the defenses of 17 other species with ease. Yet human ships, technologically inferior in almost every way, somehow survived repeated direct hits. "High Commander requests your findings," announced a subordinate, entering the laboratory. Ix gestured toward the display. "The humans use a common metal alloy as a binding agent in their hull composition. Its atomic structure creates a harmonic disruption that dissipates our energy weapons across the hull surface instead of allowing penetration." "Can we adapt our weapons?" "Already working on it," Ix replied. "We're testing modified frequencies that should bypass the disruption effect." Back on Earth, Tom Reeb stood before a wall of screens in the newly established Project SHIELD headquarters. What had begun as a cost-cutting measure was now humanity's most important defense research program. Teams of engineers and scientists worked around the clock to enhance the protective properties of Tom's accidental discovery. "The latest tests show we can improve dissipation by 28% if we layer the alloy in this pattern," Tom explained to Admiral Wilson, who had arrived for the weekly briefing. "We're also experimenting with incorporating it into our weapon systems to create shields for ground troops." Wilson nodded thoughtfully. "The Vorn have gone quiet since our counterattack. Intelligence believes they're studying our technology." "They are," Tom confirmed. "Our listening posts intercepted communications from a Vorn research vessel. They're working on modifying their weapons to overcome our advantage." "How long do we have?" Tom frowned. "Hard to say. Their technology is far more advanced than ours, but the advantage of our solution is its simplicity. Sometimes complex problems have simple answers that are difficult to counter precisely because they're so basic." Wilson's aide entered the room, face tight with concern. "Admiral, we've detected a Vorn fleet approaching the Arcturus colony. 6 ships, new configuration. They're testing their adaptations," Wilson said grimly. "Deploy the 4th Fleet to intercept." "And read." "I'm already on it," Tom replied, turning to his team. "Prepare the prototype shield modulator for immediate deployment. If they've adjusted their weapons, we need to adjust our defenses." Across the room, Dr. Lin, Tom's chief metallurgist, looked up from her workstation. "The molecular resonance chamber is ready. If we can obtain a sample of their new weapon energy signature, we can potentially find another countermeasure." "Make it happen," Wilson ordered. "Humanity's survival depends on staying one step ahead." In space near Arcturus colony, the human and Vorn fleets engaged in battle once more. This time, the Vorn weapons struck with greater effect. The modified energy beams penetrated the human ships' hulls at specific points, causing significant damage. On the UES Dauntless, Commander Parker watched with growing alarm as systems failed throughout his ship. "They've adapted," he reported to Earth Command. "Their weapons are bypassing our defenses at junction points in the hull structure." The human fleet retreated, having lost 2 ships and with 3 more heavily damaged. When the battle data reached Project SHIELD, Tom and his team worked frantically to analyze it. "They're using a modulated frequency that targets the atomic bonds in our alloy," Tom explained to Admiral Wilson. "Clever. Can you counter it?" Tom stared at the simulation results, his mind racing through possibilities. "Yes," he said finally, "but we need to think differently. Instead of trying to block their energy, we can use it against them." "How?" "Their weapons are still crystalline-based," Tom said, excitement building in his voice. "What if we modify our hulls to not just dissipate their energy, but to reflect it back at a frequency that disrupts their own crystalline systems. Wilson's eyes widened. "You're talking about turning their weapons against them." "Exactly," Tom said. "It's time to move from defense to offensive defense. The next ship they hit might just hit back without firing a shot." The stealth shuttle drifted silently through the debris field surrounding the Vorn research station. Inside, Tom Reed checked his environmental suit seals one last time. Despite his civilian background, months of intensive training had prepared him for this mission. At least in theory. "Final approach," whispered Dave Jones, the tactical officer piloting the craft. His hands moved with practiced precision over the controls, guiding them between twisted fragments of destroyed ships. Proximity sensors detect minimal activity on the outer ring. Entry point in sight. Beside Tom sat Anna Clark, the team's language specialist, and Mike Brown, a combat-experienced Marine. The four-person infiltration team represented Earth's best chance at discovering what the Vorn were planning next. "Remember," Tom said quietly, "our primary objective is data collection. The Vorn have been developing new weapons faster than we can counter them. We need their research." The others nodded. Earth's initial advantage had been steadily eroding over the past 3 months. The reflected energy defense Tom had developed worked briefly, until the Vorn adjusted their weapons again. It was a technological arms race that humanity was gradually losing. Dave maneuvered the shuttle into a maintenance dock that intelligence had identified as rarely used. With a soft thud, magnetic clamps engaged, securing the craft to the station. "Atmospheric seal confirmed," Anna reported. "External composition matches our breathing mix, but keep helmets on. We don't know what might be harmful to human biology." The team exited the shuttle through the airlock, weapons ready. The station's interior glowed with an eerie blue light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "Their whole technology is crystalline-based," Tom whispered, scanning the corridor with a specialized device. "This way to the central research hub." They moved silently through the station, avoiding the occasional Vorn patrol. The aliens moved with fluid grace, their translucent bodies reflecting the blue light around them. Tom had never seen one up close before. They were beautiful in a strange, otherworldly way, with complex internal structures visible through their semi-transparent outer layers. After 20 minutes of careful progress, they reached the research section. Anna worked quickly to bypass the security measures using algorithms developed from previous encounters. "We're in," she announced as a door slid open. 30 minutes until the security system cycles. Inside, Tom immediately went to work. The research lab contained dozens of crystalline terminals, each glowing with data. He connected his device to what appeared to be the main console. "Downloading their weapons research now," he reported. "This might take..." "Wait. What is it?" Dave asked, keeping watch at the door. Tom stared at the data flowing across his screen. "This isn't just weapons research. They're building something massive. A defensive system, but not against us." He pointed to a star chart displaying a region of space far beyond Vorn territory. "They're preparing for something else, something they call the Void." Anna moved to his side, studying the alien symbols. The translation is imprecise, but they describe it as the darkness that consumes light. They've lost outer colonies to it already. The Vorn aren't expanding their territory just for conquest, Tom realized. They're running from something. A sudden alarm blared through the station. Lights shifted from blue to red, bathing the room in an ominous glow. "We've been detected," Dave reported, readying his weapon. "Time to go." Tom frantically copied the remaining data. Just a few more seconds. The doors slid open, revealing 4 Vorn security officers. Their crystalline bodies pulsed with energy as they raised weapon-like appendages. "Go," Dave shouted, opening fire. "I'll hold them off." Mike grabbed Tom and Anna, pulling them toward a secondary exit. "Move now. Complete the mission." Tom hesitated, but Dave pushed him away. "The data is more important than any of us. Go." The last Tom saw of Dave was him standing his ground against the advancing Vorn, buying them precious seconds to escape. The remaining team members fought their way back to the shuttle, barely managing to disengage from the station before larger Vorn vessels responded. As they accelerated away, Tom clutched the data device containing not just the weapons research they had sought, but something far more significant, evidence of a threat that might be greater than the war between humans and Vorn. Dave sacrificed himself for this, Tom said quietly as the shuttle entered FTL speed. We need to make sure it wasn't in vain. Admiral Wilson stared at the holographic representation of the void that hovered above the conference table. The massive dark mass slowly expanded through a section of space, consuming everything in its path. The intelligence Tom's team had recovered from the Vorn research station painted a disturbing picture. "And you're certain about this translation?" Wilson asked Anna Clark, who stood beside Tom. "Yes, sir," she replied. "The Vorn have lost 7 outer colonies to this phenomenon. It consumes energy, all forms of energy. Their weapons, their ships, even the crystalline biology of the Vorn themselves." Tom pointed to another section of the display. "This is why they've been so aggressive in expanding their territory. They're not just conquerors. They're refugees, trying to establish new colonies before their home systems are consumed." The gathered military and scientific leaders exchanged uneasy glances. The Vorn, once seen as humanity's greatest threat, now appeared to be running from something far worse. "This changes everything," Admiral Wilson said finally. "If this void reaches our space, we could be facing extinction." "There's more," Tom continued. "The Vorn have been developing increasingly powerful energy weapons, not just to fight us, but to try to combat this thing. Nothing has worked. In fact, their energy-based technology seems to attract it, accelerating its advance." Dr. Morgan removed his glasses, polishing them nervously. "And our kinetic weapons?" "Useless against something that isn't solid matter," Tom replied. "But our hull alloy, the one that disrupts Vorn energy weapons, it might have properties that could be effective. The void seems to struggle with consuming simpler technologies." Admiral Wilson paced the room. "We need more information. And for that, we need the Vorn." 3 days later, at a neutral location in the outer solar system, humanity attempted its most dangerous diplomatic mission. The UES Peacemaker, with Admiral Wilson and Tom aboard, waited at the designated coordinates. Tom nervously adjusted the communication system one last time. "Do you think they'll come?" he asked. Wilson's face remained stoic. "They intercepted our message. They know we have information about the void. If they're as desperate as your intelligence suggests, they'll come." On cue, a Vorn vessel materialized nearby, its crystalline structure glittering against the backdrop of distant stars. It was smaller than their warships, but still impressive, clearly a diplomatic vessel rather than a military one. "Channel open," reported the communications officer. A holographic image appeared on the bridge, a Vorn of apparently high rank, its internal structures more complex than those Tom had seen on the research station. "I am High Commander Rel of the Vorn Ascendancy," the alien announced, its words translated through the system Anna had developed. "You claim to have information about the Devourer of Worlds." Admiral Wilson stepped forward. "We know about the threat you call the Void. We recovered data from one of your research stations. The Vorn's body pulsed with what might have been anger. You infiltrated our facility." "Yes," Wilson admitted. "We were at war, but now we face a common enemy." Tom moved beside Wilson. "Your weapons, your entire technology, is based on crystalline energy matrices. That's why the Void is drawn to your systems. It feeds on that energy." The Vorn commander's form shimmered. "This is known to us. We have tried to adapt, but the Void only grows stronger with each attempt. Our ships," Tom continued, "use a simple alloy that disrupts energy patterns. That's why your weapons were less effective against us. We believe this property might be effective against the Void as well." For several long moments, the Vorn commander was silent. Finally, it spoke. "You propose an alliance. After we destroyed your colonies, Survival makes for strange alliances, Wilson replied. We have something you need, technology that doesn't attract the void. You have the advanced scientific knowledge to help us develop it into an effective defense. And our captive? The Vorn asked. The one called Dave Jones. Tom stepped forward eagerly. He's alive. He resisted interrogation with remarkable determination, the Vorn commander said, with what almost sounded like respect. His presence would facilitate trust between our species. Wilson nodded. Release him as a gesture of good faith, and we can begin working together immediately. The Vorn commander's form pulsed with light as it considered. Very well. We will return your crew member and commence scientific exchange. The void will reach this sector in 57 of your days. We have little time to prepare. As the communication ended, Tom turned to Wilson. Do you think this can actually work? An alliance with the very aliens who tried to destroy us. The combined human-Vorn fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system, a sight that would have been unimaginable just months earlier. 43 human vessels and 27 Vorn ships formed a defensive line against the approaching darkness that sensors could barely detect. The Void, as humans called it, or the Devourer, as the Vorn named it, advanced inexorably toward them, a shifting mass of nothingness that consumed energy and matter alike. On the bridge of the flagship Defiance, Tom Reed worked alongside Ix, the Vorn chief scientist. The unlikely partnership had yielded results neither species could have achieved alone. Final checks complete, Tom announced, monitoring the readings from the modified hull plating that now covered every ship in the fleet. The simple Earth alloy had been refined and enhanced with Vorn crystalline technology, creating a hybrid material that theoretically could resist the void's consumption. Admiral Wilson entered the bridge, followed by the recently returned Dave Jones. Though thinner from his captivity among the Vorn, Dave had recovered quickly and volunteered for this mission. His time among the aliens had given him unique insights that proved valuable for the Alliance. Status report, Wilson demanded. The Void will reach our position in 20 minutes, Tom replied. The modified shields are operating at 98% efficiency. All ships are in formation. Dave moved to the tactical station. Vorn vessels report ready. Their energy weapons have been reconfigured to the specifications we provided. The plan was desperate but represented humanity's best chance. While the Vorn ships would use modified energy weapons to probe the void for weaknesses, the human vessels would deploy the special alloy in concentrated bursts, attempting to create disruption zones within the entity. There's something you should know, Tom said quietly to Wilson. The simulations suggest this might be a one-way mission for the lid ships. Wilson nodded grimly. The crews volunteered with full knowledge. Sometimes the greatest victories require the greatest sacrifices. A hush fell over the bridge as the void came into visual range. It resembled a black fog that somehow swallowed light, rather than being illuminated by it. Where it passed, stars temporarily vanished from view. All ships, commence Phase 1, Wilson ordered. The Vorn vessels moved forward, firing specialized energy beams into the void. Instead of trying to destroy it, a tactic that had failed repeatedly, they were attempting to create resonance patterns within its structure. Energy signatures fluctuating, reported the science officer. The void is responding to the Vorn attack patterns. Tom watched intently. It's working. The entity is shifting focus toward the energy sources, just as we predicted. Phase 2, Wilson commanded. The human ships surged forward, deploying canisters of the modified alloy into the regions where the void's attention was focused on the Vorn energy weapons. As the canisters detonated, they created expanding clouds of the disruption material. We're getting readings from inside the void, Tom announced with growing excitement. The alloy is creating stable zones where its consumption effect is neutralized. The Defiance shuddered violently as it penetrated deeper into the void's perimeter. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull integrity compromised on decks 5 through 8, Dave reported. The void is adapting, trying to consume our shields. Tom turned to Ix. It's time for Phase 3. The Vorn scientists' crystalline form pulsed with acknowledgement. Together, they activated the combined technology they had developed, a resonance device that amplified the disruptive properties of the human alloy using Vorn crystalline transmission patterns. A brilliant pulse of energy erupted from the Defiance, spreading throughout the void. Where it touched, the darkness seemed to recoil, creating expanding pockets of normal space. "It's working," Dave called out. "The void is contracting." On the main view screen, they watched as the void began to collapse in on itself, its structure destabilized by the combination of simple human metallurgy and advanced Vorn energy manipulation. "All ships, maximum thrust," Wilson ordered. "Get clear of the collapse zone." The Allied fleet retreated as the void imploded, condensing from a massive, system-threatening entity into a swirling vortex barely a kilometer wide. Hours later, as the remaining ships regrouped, Tom stood with Admiral Wilson, Dave, and Ix, watching the containment vessels secure what remained of the void for further study. "A remarkable achievement," Ix commented, its voice translation system conveying genuine respect. "Our species, so recently at war, have accomplished together what neither could have done alone."